Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking all 35 different sets of footwear in Baldur's Gate 3 on a tier list. Shoes, boots, whatever you want to call them. We'll be breaking them all down in this video here, and we'll be first starting off with the Boots of Aid and Comfort. This is one of the very first boots that you can get in the game. When a wearer heals a target, it gains 3 temporary health points. That's nice on especially early game, a cleric or anyone that's got the amulet that you can get some free heals from. Because there's not a lot of boot choices early on in the game, but 3 temporary health isn't really that much. It's an okay choice overall, but nothing I'd really put up very high, so we'll have to say it's somewhere around the C to D tier. But we got a much better set of shoes next with the Boots of Stormy Clamour. This is actually one of the best boots in the game. So when the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature, they inflict 2 turns of reverberation. Condition is very loosely applied. Threatened is a condition, so if you are beside another one of your teammates, and then an enemy comes up right beside you, you can actually apply reverberation 2 stacks just by being beside your friend. And on top of all of this, you can also get the Illithid ability drain, and this will actually count as something that gives a condition. So if you got the Illithid ability, you can actually use an arrow of many targets and apply this to a bunch of people. It'll reduce their dexterity by 1, which may reduce their armor class by 1. But the big thing is it also stacks up your reverberation, which is nice because you can knock the enemy prone once you get 7 stacks and they take thunder damage. This is super useful because if you're able to apply, let's say you have Spirit Guardians counts as a condition and an enemy runs up on you, knock them prone, then they can't even attack you. The Boots of Stormy Clamour are extremely useful and very good on any type of reverberation based build. You can also daze the target if you have thunder damage. There's a specific ring the Ring of Spiteful Thunder, which will apply the dazed target given disadvantage on wisdom saves. Reverberation is extremely overpowered and one of the best in the game, so I actually think the Boots of Stormy Clamour are S tier. Some people may not agree with me. It is only uncommon rarity, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things because reverberation is so powerful. But yeah, I think it's definitely a S tier pick. And next up, we have a more of a joke item with the Boots of Very Fast Blinking. So the big caveat of this is it does make your character lose their clothing. So you get the disrobing blink step here. So whenever you use this, you pop there and then your clothing will drop to the ground. Boom, you don't have it on. Now, it kind of works silly with some modded outfits because you'll lose them forever. So just keep in mind if you're going to use this that you may end up losing your outfits. But yeah, the Boots of Very Fast Blinking has one particular use in the game. There's the Act 3 moment. I'm not going to really give any spoilers here, but you need to teleport around. And having a free Misty Step, which is per turn, bonus action, doesn't use a spell slot, that's really good. It's much better actually than some of the other boots that, well, not better, but there's some boots that'll give you a free Misty Step per short rest. This gives you it per turn. So this is actually the one location where it's useful. The counting house, I guess I should say, without spoiling too much. But yeah, the one usefulness of it. So yeah, I'm still going to put that into the D tier just because it only has one real use in the game. And it's that one moment, but you just got to be mindful. You can lose your clothing. So yeah, that's not always ideal. And next up is the Cinder Shoes. When you burn an enemy, you get 2 turns of heat. So burning an enemy makes them take damage. With this, you gain 2 turns of heat, which gives you a 1d4 damage of fire per turn. So that's obviously something that you got to keep in mind. That's what the boots look like there. It's good on heat builds, but the big problem with heat builds is they're not good. So despite having a particular build use case, it's not really that powerful. Being able to apply heat is nice, however. So, I mean, it has its usefulness. I will put it just in the C tier. Heat builds are fine. You can beat the game with heat builds. They're just not that great in the grand scheme of things. And next up is the Hoarfrost Boots, which you can find at Creshulak. What this does is it basically makes you can't fall prone while running on ice. This is actually pretty useful for a variety of builds. Ice is one of the best crowd controls you can use because it doesn't require concentration, and many spellcasters can get things like Ice Storm. And on top of all that, this is great on a frontliner. There's other boots in Act 1 that you can get, we'll be touching on a little bit later. That also gives you the ability to run on ice, so you can have 2 of your martial classes run out on ice, not have to worry about anything. For that, I think it's worthwhile, but it's only in particular if you're going to be using ice builds, as the enemy does use ice, but not as often as I do. So with that, I think they're actually pretty useful on a martial class. We'll put them somewhere around the B tier. Just there's better boots, but I just can't ignore the fact that being able to ignore ice surfaces is so nice, and not being able to slip and fall on them. It's actually useful for spellcasters as well, but I would say it's most useful on someone that's running around a lot. So yeah, we're going to put those into the B tier. Good on a monk, good on a fighter, etc. Next up, we got ourselves the Mystra's Grace here, which gives you a level 1 casting of Featherfall. That's cool and all, but yeah, we'll keep this one brief. Featherfall is something that you can get a potion of, and it's a spell that a wizard can prepare. So yeah, we're just going to put that one into the D tier. It's not as good as the rest. And next up is the Spiderstep Boots. Now, I'm just going to give a... This is actually an interesting item because you get it at the most useful time that you'd be wanting to have this. Immune to being in-webbed. You get it right before you fight the spider. That alone makes it decent. However, how many spiders do you fight in Baldur's Gate 3? Not many. Your movement speed is not affected by web surfaces. This could be good, however, if you have like a spider pet, if you're a Beastmaster Ranger, or if you have a druid that wild shapes into a spider on your team, or if you like using the Ranger Swarmkeeper and casting web. There's some usefulness for it, but overall, I think the best thing about it is you get it right at a point where it could be useful. But other than that, it's something that I would have to say is probably about a C tier. And yeah, we'll put this up at the C tier just because you get it at a very nice time. And next up is the Tyranical Jackboots. Now, these get points for style because they look cool. Even their icon looks cool. There's no other boots in the game that look like that. So yeah, style points, I guess, if you care about those such things, but it's not as great as some of the others. It gives a +1 bonus to charisma checks and saving throws, and that's about it. And the fact that you get these very late in the game from Enver Gortash makes them not that amazing, but cool. They look nice. Overall, though, we're still going to throw that into the D tier just so you get it late in the game, and you probably have 10 other pairs of boots that are much better than it at this point. And finally, for the uncommon non-medium armor boots, we have the Varsh Boots, which makes it so acid surfaces do not affect you, and you're resistant to acid damage. There's actually a few acid-based items in the game. Give it points for that, because if you really, really wanted to use an acid build, this would be one of the required ones to give you resistance to the acid damage and not getting hit by acid surfaces. There's also a glove that'll make acid appear. There's a ring that'll make acid damage pop up. It's another piece of gear that's related to that. So it's cool if you really like acid builds, but acid is one of the worst damage types in the game, unfortunately. And with that, I'd probably put it into the C tier. It's really not that incredible, but now we're getting into some better ones. We have two boots here. There's only two boots that are uncommon rarity and medium armor. And an interesting one here. So the boots of elemental momentum. So whenever the wearer deals acid, cold, lightning, thunder, or fire damage with a spell or a cantrip, booming blade does count. They gain momentum for 2 turns. +1 to athletics. This is nice. Momentum will give you an extra 1.5 meters of movement speed for each stack. So it's an extra 3 meters of movement speed. And where this is useful is, I guess there's 2 classes that can really make a huge use of this. So if you got any caster with heavy armor, most notably the ones that I'm thinking of are the Hexblade Warlock introduced in patch 8, which gives medium armor proficiency, so you can do a booming blade, get momentum. And the Eldritch Knight is another class that I think would make the most use out of this. The Blade Singing Wizard, unless you multi-class it with like the Tempest Domain Cleric, you don't got medium armor proficiency, and it's going to bring you to your Blade Song. So this isn't actually something you'd want on a Blade Singing Wizard. It's best if you got it on an Eldritch Knight or a Hexblade Warlock. So momentum, extra movement speed, that's always a good thing. So this one I'd have to say is it's a B tier option, lower of the B tier. I actually think the next piece of gear that we're going to be covering is a little bit better. So that is the Boots of Striding. So when you cast a spell that requires concentration, you gain momentum for 1 turn, so less movement speed. But the big thing here is when you're concentrating, you can't get knocked prone or moved against your will. 2 of the biggest reasons that people drop their concentrations is not getting knocked prone or being moved. This prevents that overall. So I actually think the Boots of Striding is probably the best. Other than the Boots of Stormy Clamour, light, or I guess uncommon green rarity item. It is medium armor, so you do have to be someone with the armor proficiency. You could dip a single level of the fighter. Starting fighter will also give you constitution saving throw proficiency and heavy armor proficiency. So if you really want your caster to get this, start fighter, start barbarian. It's a really useful item. And I actually say this is our first A tier. I wouldn't put it in the S tier. It could potentially go the S tier, just because that is super useful to be not able to lose your concentration from being knocked prone. And yeah, that momentum is nice too. And getting into rare boots, starting off with the Acrobat Boots here. +1 acrobatics, advantage on dexterity saving throw checks. That's actually not too bad. Dexterity saving throws are somewhat frequent. You can buy these from Barkus Root in Act 2, so you actually get some good use out of them. +1 acrobatics, that's fine, but the big thing is the advantage on dexterity saving throw checks. And that actually is pretty solid. We're going to throw this one into the B tier. Somewhere's at probably the top of the B tier. And next up is the Boots of Apparent Death. So this gives us the ability to feign death, level 3 necromancy cantrip. I mean, it is what it is. That's an alright option. Yeah, not my absolute favorite. It's something. Unfortunately though, the action economy dictates that this is not that good. We don't want to be just skipping our team turn. This is actually a spell that I don't really love, and good reason not to love it. So we're going to throw that down into the D tier. But next up, The Boots of Arcane Bolstering. Now what these do is every time you dash, you gain Arcane Charge for 2 turns. So Arcane Charge deals extra 2 damage against threatened targets. This is nice on magic missile and not so as effective on single target spells. It's an okay choice. I wouldn't really say this is anything to like go crazy over, but yeah, you can get the Arcane Charge. Not many items will give Arcane Charges, so we'll put that somewhere into the C tier. Just not as useful as some of the other boots, especially for casters. And next up we got the Boots of Brilliance, which gives us a restore Bardic Inspiration, so you can play your instruments to receive your Bardic Inspiration back. That's what it looks like if you use it without an instrument equipped. But great for bards, and you can always, this is actually one of the ones that's nice because you can pop this on, get your Bardic Inspiration back, and then go back to whatever boots that you were wearing. So yeah, I'd put this one probably about A tier just because of that usefulness. Maybe tier A to B tier, somewhere's around there. It's not one that you're going to often use, but if you have a bard on your team, it's just great for them. And next up is the Boots of Genial Striding. So what this does, it makes your movement speed unimpeded by difficult terrain. Very useful. And a little bit of a bug with this, it does not work with plant growth. So just a heads up there. If you got Druid, yeah, it still doesn't work with plant growth or deep water. Those are 2 things that it doesn't work with. Overall, it's nice because you get it from Blurg in Act 1. So really early on, you can get an item like this. So we'll throw it into the B tier just because it's useful for, I guess, a couple purposes. And next up is the Boots of Speed, which we can give back in Act 1 if we don't want to use these. This gives us the Click Heals ability, so it's basically a bonus action like dash there. So you got the Click Heals, movement speed double, disadvantage and opportunity attacks against you. It's nice, but you can give it away for another item there. So yeah, it's something, I guess. The big thing with this item being it's a bonus action, so you can get that extra movement speed on someone that doesn't really use their bonus action as much. Which is actually not bad, and it gives you the freedom of movement as well. I actually don't think it's best to give these items back because you get the robe of Uninhibited Kushigo or a ring for shoving people. Both of them aren't as good as this, so keep the Boots of Speed. I'd recommend that. Overall, the Boots of Speed actually, yeah, we might say A tier for the Boots of Speed just because that bonus action ability is really good. So bottom A tier, B tier, somewhere around there, I'd say. And next is the Boots of Uninhibited Kushigo. So I just talked about the robes. This will give you additional damage equal to your wisdom modifier on unarmed attacks. So you can get a potential +5, +6, I guess, to your unarmed strikes, which is nice because monks hit twice. So boom, boom, that 6 becomes a 12 real quick. And it's good. It's good on monks. That's about it. So yeah, I wouldn't put it on anyone else really. We'll throw this one into the A tier just because it's probably the best in slot for a monk. I'll put it at the bottom of the A tier. It's only good because of monks, and yeah, it's probably the best in slot boots for a monk. And next is the Linebreaker Boots. Once per turn, when you dash, you gain Wrath for 2 turns. This is probably best on a rogue or something like that because they get the bonus action dashes, or a monk, I guess. The Wrath for 2 turns actually means that you'll get an additional +2 to your damage and then a +1 in the subsequent turn. And these boots also are lying. They say Wrath for 2 turns. It's actually 3 turns, so that is a nice little, I guess, added benefit of that is they're not truthful to it. So you go ahead there. I guess the dash doesn't really because we're not in combat, but you get the drift. 3 stacks. And for that, I'd probably say somewhere's around the bottom of the B tier to C tier. Somewhere's around there. Unfortunately, just because dashing is a huge action, you kind of lose the offensive ability because it's an action for most people. So we'll put it into the C tier there. And next up, we got the Spacehunt Boots. These are actually really good because it gives you dimension doors, so you can go bloop and bloop. You can take you and your friend away, and there you go. Sorry, Jahara, I didn't mean to bring you out here, but yeah, you get the idea that it's a useful one because there's not many things that'll give you dimension door, a level 4 spell, and that is just a good thing to have on somebody. So it's very useful. And again, another thing in Act 3, but no spoilers, there's a moment where you have to rescue someone, and having this actually very useful in a variety of different places. So yeah, I'd have to say that this one, the Spacehunt Boots, is probably a high B to A tier, just because Space Hunt or the Dimension Door is such a useful spell to have. And next we got the Springstep Boots. These give you additional 3 meters or 3 momentum stacks, so additional 4.5 meters of movement speed when you dash. So obviously a lot of movement speed there. And the beautiful thing about this is you get it from Drawer Raglan's hideout. So yeah, you can get it relatively early in the game, and it's going to last for a lot of people, especially if you dash often. This gives you the momentum for 3 turns. That's a lot of movement speed. So we'll throw this one up into the top of the B tier, potential A tier option, just because that extra movement speed is nice. And next is the Water Sparkler. So when the wearer stands in water during combat, it becomes electrified. And if you start your turn on an electrified surface, you gain 3 lightning charges. Lightning charges are pretty decent overall. It's better than heat, so that gets points alone. Starting creating electricity surfaces is tough because then your teammates will take damage from it, but it's nice. It does pair well with the Sparks Wall Ring, but the big problem is it can make people aggro on you because if you create a lightning surface, it's damaging them. So be mindful when using these. You can also get them early by Minthara, so it's nice, but I just think that this is too much of a risk, so I'm going to put it into the C tier. Even though lightning charges are pretty decent, it's okay. If you really want to do a lightning charge build, again, there's better builds out there and better boots for spellcasters. And next we got ourselves the Evasive Shoes. +1 armor class, +1 to saving throws. Lots to love there. It gives you extra armor class. What more could you want? This is kind of like a useful boot for anybody. There's no real class that deserves this the most. As long as you're trying to hit an armor class goal, this will help you push a little bit further. And I'd actually say that the Evasive Shoes are probably an S tier choice. Just being able to flat out increase your armor class is really nice to have with no other drawbacks. It's just good on everybody. And then next we got these Slinging Shoes. Returns to its owner when thrown. On hit, deals an additional 2 to 8 psychic damage. This is an interesting one because it's not really meant to be, you're meant to throw it. So you go whoop, throw it, and then Scratch will come and get it. So yeah, it disappeared. That works too. I guess it goes back to your hand. Right, it goes right on your body there. So this can be useful if you want to swap off your boots, but there's not many chances where that's very useful. The dexterity saving throws +1 is okay. Yeah, you can throw it to deal a little extra psychic damage, which is cool, but the weapon itself only does like a, you saw there, 0 damage. It's a gimmick item, but it's cool. I guess with that, we'll say C tier as well, or D tier probably. It's not really boots that give much of a benefit, so yeah, we'll throw it in there. And next up is the Swiresy Shoes. Jump distance increase 1.5 meters, and you get a +1 to acrobatics. That's good. It's also something you get pretty early on in the game. Available at the Goblin Camp by Grat. You can purchase them there. Jump distance is good on a variety of classes, but there's other ways, and I think other items that are good for those classes too. So I mean, jump distance is hard to argue. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. I think it's worthwhile in some, but its biggest benefit is you get it early on. And next is the Blackguard's Greaves. This gains Long Strider. This will give you extra movement speed. That's nice. So you get that extra 3 meters movement speed. And it also gives you a +1 to athletics. It is medium armor, however, so that's something to keep in mind. Everyone can benefit from increased movement speed, but there's better versions of this later. It's decent. I'd have to say this one's another B tier choice. And next is the Dark Justiciar Boots. So this gives you shadow teleportation, which is pretty generous in how far it gives you the jump distance. So you can see here where it's in here, and it must be lightly or heavily obscured. It's saying a lot of these areas are lightly obscured. It's pretty useful for that. So it gives you that teleport to an unobscured spot. It's also per short rest, so you can use this one relatively frequently. And it also gives a dexterity saving throw +1. It's okay, I guess. Misty Step is always something that you want to have, so it's better to have it than to not have it. It is obviously restricted to only lightly obscured and heavily obscured areas, but that's a lot of this game, honestly. So I'd say it's a B tier choice. Somewhere's in the B tier. Not the best, not the worst, but it's worth noting if you want something like that. And next we got the Speedy Lightfeet. This is an interesting one. When you dash, you get 3 lightning charges and +1 to athletics. However, it is medium armor, so a lot of the builds that would actually take the biggest benefit of using this can't. So yeah, lightning charges are nice to have, but you got to be a heavier caster. This is probably best on like a Tempest Domain cleric. Not bad. Lightning charges are pretty useful overall, so I'd have to say this one is another B tier, being held back by it being labeled a medium armor. And next is the the Unwanted Masterwork Greaves. Yeah, +1 to athletics. We can already get that from our other boots here. Actually, we get acrobatics, which is a little bit better for most with the Evasive Shoes. So meh, that's a D tier choice. Not that good overall. It's kind of meh. And then next we got Vital Conduit Boots. This is an interesting one. So whenever you cast a spell that requires concentration, you gain 8 temporary health points. That's cool and dandy. You do have to cast a spell that requires concentration. There's a few things that works with it and a few things that don't. So first off, True Strike and the resistance cantrips will work on it. So that's 2 ways to easily get that 8 temporary health. Also, if you reapply Hex, Hunter's Marks, Moonbeam, Heat Metal, Call Lightning, and Vampiric Touch, it don't work. It don't work. But if we use Cloud Kill, it does work. So it's kind of picky on what makes it work properly, and that is kind of annoying. +1 to athletics as well. It also looks like the Githyanki boots, so that's, I guess, something to keep in note. But overall, it's okay, I guess. It's a medium armor and based on heavy spell casting, so it's related to clerics. I would say, again, resistance will trigger this. it can be good if you want to cast that. And you also get it from Creshulek, so it's early on in the game. Overall, I would say this one is it's probably a C tier option overall. And now we're getting into some of the best boots in the game. Oddly enough, there's a huge power spike from uncommon to the rare. We already have only 2 S tiers with the Boots of Stormy, Clamour, and the Evasive Shoes, uncommon and rare. And you can see there, the bulk majority of them are just meh. But now we got some exciting ones. We got the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. This is one of the best in the game. So, cannot be enwebbed, entangled, ensnared, and can't slip on grease or ice. And you get a level 2 Misty Step. Honestly, one of the best boots in the game. 3 Misty Step, and it's per short rest. Huge. And again, Misty Step, bonus action. It's great on fighters. It's great on spellcasters. Great on anyone. But it's probably best utilized on any type of frontliner melee class, because you can't be enwebbed, entangled, ensnared, can't slip on ice. As I was mentioning, Hoarfrost Boots are great. Disintegrating Nightwalkers, I could go on and on about how good these are, but we already know this is one of the best boots in the game, so top of the S tier. And next we got ourselves the Bonespike Boots. +1 armor class and saving throws as long as you're not wearing armor or holding a shield. And your jump distance is increased by 1.5 meters, and you get Brutal Leap. Brutal Leap is kind of cool because it's a bonus action, and it uses a bit of your movement speed. You can jump at someone and knock them prone, so you go yeehaw and knock someone prone with that. That's kind of cool. These are probably the best in slot if you're using a Barbarian that is using a 2-handed weapon, because Barbarian can actually add their shield to their armor class with the unarmored defense, so their Constitution modifier, their shield, their Dexterity modifier all get added to armor class. This will give another +1 and +1 to saving throws, so it's a little bit better than the Evasive Shoes, but the big caveat here is you can't wear armor or a shield. So again, clothing-based Barbarian makes the best use of this. That's using a 2-handed weapon. It'll also increase your jump distance by 1.5 meters. This is a really good one again. Limitations, but really good too. The holding it back is making it so that you can only use this on someone that's not wearing armor or a shield, so we'll put it in the A tier for that, but it's still pretty solid overall. Next up is the Boots of Psionic Movement. This is a medium armor option. When a Githyanki casts Fly, their next melee attack deals an additional 1d4 of psychic damage, and you get the Githborn Flying Boots. It's a bonus action, gives you Fly for 10 turns. Now, that damage can actually apply on damage riders, so it can sometimes apply that 1d4 multiple times. The Fly is a little misleading. It has to be this particular one, or the spell Fly, so it doesn't work with, if you have the Illithid ability Fly, it doesn't actually trigger this, unfortunately. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is you got the Illithid, you can't outsmart it, you do have to use that bonus action, so you don't get that extra damage. Also, if you use the Starry Form Druid Fly, it doesn't work. And if you use the Storm Sorcerer's level 1 Fly, it doesn't work. It has to be the Flying Spell or the Githborn Flying Boots, so it is somewhat limited, but that extra 1d4 damage is actually kind of funny in how it works. It's a little bit better outside of honor mode, but in honor mode, still decent. Additional psychic damage is good too, because the Resonant Stone can double that damage, but overall, I'd say it's another A tier choice or somewhere around there. And next up is the Helldusk Boots. You cannot be forcibly moved by a foe's spells or actions. You ignore the effects of difficult terrain. That alone's already put it in at very high. And then when you fail a saving throw, you can use your reaction to succeed instead. And you also get the Hellcrawler ability, which does a fiery explosion when you teleport somewhere, so you can damage people. Just be mindful not to damage your team. It's pretty fiery and smoky. So yeah, this is honestly one of the best boots in the game. Can't be ignoring difficult terrain. Like, even just half of this is good. The Infernal Evasion, using your saving throw to succeed, is also extremely good. It's a very powerful boot. So yeah, this is an S tier choice as well. It might actually, depends. It's somewhere around there. They're kind of equal. I'm going to put the Disintegrating Nightwalkers ahead of it, because you get this in Act 1 versus the end of Act 3. And finally, the last boots that we got here are the Boots of Persistence. So you're persistent to make it to this late in the video, so thank you for watching. You gain the freedom of movement and long strider abilities and a +1 to dexterity saving throws. This is really good because it gives you that +3 movement speed. It gives you movement speed cannot be reduced by difficult terrain, spells or magical effects cannot be paralyzed or restrained. That's pretty good for the boots. You get an extra movement speed. You get all those benefits, dexterity saving throws +1. It's honestly just as good as the Helldusk Boots. The Helldusk Boots are probably actually a little bit better. So this is another S tier choice. So Disintegrating Nightwalkers, S tier. Helldusk Boots, S tier. Boots of Persistence, S tier. Boots of Stormy, Clamour, S tier. Most underrated boot in the game. And the Evasive Shoes for that additional armor class, S tier. That is a very solid list of boots. You could have a full team of having, really, anyone can benefit from the plus armor class. Boots of Stormy, Clamour are great on pretty much anyone as well. I would recommend having a spellcaster, also stacking Reverberation alongside those. And these work on great on anyone as well. The thing with the Boots of Persistence, though, just a heads up, it's a medium armor choice, whereas a lot of these other ones that have similar effects are lighter armor, and then the Helldusk boots are free for anyone to wear. So yeah, incredible. Let me know your favorite boots in Baldur's Gate 3 in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you all in the next video.